Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode. Today we're going to be comparing a wet setup car and a dry setup car. So this is one I'm going to be using in the Kia Club, so I've changed cars, so I'll explain about that in a minute. And we've got this one as well, which I've just set up for the wet, and we're going to show you what's different on this to that. So if the shell's off to one side, the obvious thing, if we look at the front of them, is the tyres. That's a good place to start. So on here we have slick tyres, which are literally just rubber rings, all the different compounds and that, blah blah blah. You've seen them before on this channel. And on the wet tyre we have these V's, which help disperse the water away from the tyre. They are also very soft compound, which means that you have to, let me find an example, you have to glue them a lot. So sometimes the quality of the wet tyres aren't always great, and they are at least double the price of the touring car tyres. So that's an annoyance about them. If we come on to the rest of the chassis, we can see that if you look in there, and if you look in there, apart from the orange, if you spot the difference, there's no anti-roll bar in there in the wet car. There is in this one. So that's to give the car more roll. You're not limiting the roll, just to make everything a bit easier to drive, because the main thing about wet setup is making it easier to drive. So yeah, anti-roll bars front and rear are gone, whereas they are on here on this car. Also, if we look at the positions on this car, these are actually in the closest position anyway, but what you could do is you could put them out further, which gives you more camber gain. Now let's explain camber first. So on a wet car you want less static camber, and just to get as much surface area even, because you're not going to be going the same speeds as you would in the dry. So we always have less camber because you don't need that much camber, so you just want more stability basically in a straight line and slower corners. Whereas on the dry car you're going much higher speeds, the car's got much more grip, so you can allow more camber gain because you're going to get more G-forces through the corner. So camber gain is how much gain you get when the suspension goes down. So you can see a certain amount there and a certain amount there. You can see the tyre sort of comes into the centre, and you might notice that it looks a little less on this car because we've got these in the furthest position, so the closest to the diff or the spool. We've also laid down the shocks more in this car than on this car, and that's just going to give it a softer feel. Again, all about that drivability. The softer, sort of the easier it's going to be to drive, but it's not going to be as responsive. And that's the whole idea. So in the dry, where you got grip, you can have a responsive car, nice stiff setup. Whereas in the wet, you want a nice soft car. If you look at Alexander Hagberg's video, he likes to go for a soft dampening, so the oil in there is 350, in this it's 300, and then a stiffer spring. So at the front I've got sort of a medium 2.7, and the rear I think is a little bit stiffer. So still, you know, relatively high. We're not going for anything too soft like 2.3 or anything. We that's like a spring rate. Nothing like 2.3, which is one of the softest. We're still keeping it in the medium range. Can't explain the science behind that, but that's just what works in the wet. I haven't actually run this car in the wet, so I can't comment too much on it. But I've definitely seen people change their setups and improve, so I can still say a certain amount on it. Diff, I revamped that yesterday. Hopefully, if YouTube lets me post this live that I filmed yesterday, on YouTube you might see a rebuild of that, where I put 1K oil in it. So I have some 1K in here somewhere, there. So some Core RC 1K CST, and that's just allowing the rear diff to be looser. So if I feel this diff, I can't because I need two hands. Actually no, I can sort of press one on the table. That's I think that's 3K in the rear, and this is 1K. It's significantly looser. I can spin that wheel very freely. So again, that's just giving the front a bit more understeer. It's not focusing as much on the rear, making it slidey. You're giving the car more understeer, so it's easier to drive. So understeer is where you turn and the car goes straight or straighter than with less understeer. Oversteer is when the back comes out, and in the rain you do not want any oversteer because you can't correct it, even in the dry. But when in the dry you get more grip, so you don't get it as much. In the wet you need to reduce that oversteer, so you give the car more understeer so that it can't oversteer as much. I think we're mainly there with wet car setup. You raise the ride height, that's all about giving the car more roll again. So this one's sat at 6, this is 6.2 front and rear. I think it might be 5.8 and 6 actually. So we're angling the front down to get more steering. You could do that on this, you're trying to pull your weight forward. So if you look in there, I've put some weights, I've balanced it. So we have a minimum weight limit in all classes. So what you want to do is, like, the weight you've got, make sure it's balanced obviously, but balance it towards the front in the wet. Again, giving you more steering, a little bit more understeer, more grip from the steering anyway. Just making sure the rear doesn't skip out. And then you've got waterproofing your electrics, which I'm yet to do. There's not even a motor in this one. But if you go watch Alexander Hagberg's video, he makes a great explanation of how to waterproof these. I'm going to be following that soon, so that's exciting. And some of you on the channel, I've explained that this was going to be my King of Clubs car. As you can see, we've got King of Clubs size on this one, and we've swapped to this one now. So we've got now, this used to be a 17.5, it's now a 21.5. Ready for the Touring Car Talent Cup. This is also going to have the old motor. This is a brand new one. I haven't even driven it yet. Gonna put the old one back in this. And yeah, that'll be excellent. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.